Welcome to Real Conversations with Patricia Baronowski-Schneider, the podcast that takes you on a journey around the world to meet some of the most inspiring and accomplished individuals. Discover their stories, uncover invaluable business lessons from their paths to success, and gain exclusive insights on how to apply their strategies to elevate your life and business.
I'm your host, Patty Baronowski-Schneider. Today I'm joined by Glenn Rudin, the Message Master. So welcome, Glenn. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Wow, thank you so much for having me here, Patricia. It's great to be here. And turns out we're actually neighbors here on Long Island, which we didn't know. So it is a really small world, but still, Indeed. It's great to be connected with you here. You know, Patricia, what I found is that 9 out of 10 people that I come in contact with struggle with their messaging, which might include things like their personal brand, how they speak about themselves, their confidence in public speaking. And so what I do is I help people really understand the value of what they do so that they can speak about it in crystal clear ways, share that message with the world, and have the best chance of getting interaction with the people they need to help them build their business. That's why I call myself the Message Master. Right. I help people literally master their messages.
That's awesome, because it is true. I mean, even myself, it gets a little tricky. Like you see my name, IRP or marketing media. There's just so much stuff out there. It's like there's got to be a quicker and better way of just saying who I am in a nutshell. Because when they say a 3-minute elevator pitch, I'm like, I'm not that less is more person. I'm just rambling on and on. So yeah, trying to incorporate a message where it doesn't, you don't have people yawning off in the middle of it. That's like a golden rule. So now you've built your reputation as a message master. So what inspired you to focus on branding and messaging, and how did you become the expert in this area?
Well, I've been working in branding really for my entire career, Patricia. I started out in consumer packaged goods with big cosmetic companies like Revlon and Shiseido and Cheesebro Ponds. And in places like that, you've got to learn the disciplines that go into creating great copy, not only on packages for the products that you're working on, but in the ad campaigns, the marketing materials that go out to your various sales forces, the way you communicate to the retailers that are going to end up stocking your products. So I've got a lot of years of developing that kind of mindset on branding and messaging and packaging for products. And about 10 years ago, I actually started to put this together, that people are really products also, right? We have an opportunity to package ourselves. The big difference between us and, some package that you might see on a shelf somewhere is that the package has to sit there and the label or the brand has to appeal to somebody that's walking by it in a Target or a Walmart or a CVS, that kind of place. But for us, we get to label ourselves. Our labels are really the way we dress. Our labels are really our attitude, the way we show up and the way we interact with people. So it became really apparent to me that if I started thinking about people as products, and I was able to help people more or less get picked up as the products that they are by improving their branding, by improving their messaging, and also realizing that most people are terribly fearful about public speaking. They're just not comfortable doing it. They don't feel confident that when they stand up and they start speaking, they're going to be able to sound intelligent. And that, again, is just another way that I'm able to help people by instilling the confidence in them that, listen, if you take the time and do the things I'm trying to help you with, and you take the time to practice and get intentional about it, you too might not be a great orator that's going to win prizes for your speaking ability, but you certainly will have the opportunity and the ability to stand up in front of your peers and talk about things that you're passionate about or that you want to sell in ways that get people interested in your story and then get them following up with you to help you grow your business.
I think that is a huge skill, because I know some people, they're used to just having that one particular role that they have, and that's it. But you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a business owner, you branch out, this is part of the package. You have to sell yourself. And if you don't have the confidence to do it, you're kind of going down a sinking ship. So I think it's a huge asset.
Yeah. Now, and what's even worse, and I used to see this in the networking events that I went to. People would get up 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning and get to the the Chamber of Commerce or the networking committee at the diner, the BNIs, all these different things. They'd be there at 7 o'clock in the morning, make all that effort to get there. And then I'd look around the room and I'd say, that's how you want to appear before people? Like you've gotten so lazy about your appearance that it's okay to show up in some old beat up golf shirt that you got an event 10 years ago that really you should be using to wash your car. Your elevator pitch is such that you can see that you never took the time to practice it. And now we're going around the table, it comes to you. And the first thing you start out with is, or you're looking up in the sky for the answer about what you should be telling people. And then you ramble on for 3 or 4 minutes and I can look around the table and I can see everybody nodding off or looking at their phones, not paying attention. And I started thinking, you're so bad at this. And this actually became one of my first keynotes doing this. I said to myself, you wouldn't do business with yourself. And so I created this keynote called, Would You Do Business With You? Because I think if most people at these events were being honest with themselves and they watched a video of themselves doing this, they would really curl up in a ball in the corner and go, I can't believe that's me. That's how I sound. That's how I look. That's what I'm saying. Somebody help me. And that was really the beginning of my getting into the coaching people in this space.
Right. It is good because most people don't see it themselves. When you take that outside perspective, it's like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it kind of is a wake up call to people, but you're right. And speaking of elevator pitches, you mentioned that 80% of the people struggle with their messaging and elevator pitch. So what are some of the key elements that make a great elevator pitch and how can someone perfect theirs?
Okay. I love the question. Well, for starters, let's start here. The standard elevator pitch for networking events, 30 seconds. That's it. If you can't say something that is interesting and compelling and resonates with at least a few of the people who are listening to you, then you don't have it down. Great elevator pitches start with a couple of elements. The first one is intention. You've really got to work on this way before you ever get to a meeting, way before you ever go to a trade show. You really have to take a look at your business and decide what is interesting about it, what is different about it, what is unique about what I do. And then it's really important for you to create a couple of statements. The first one is your introduction. What are the first couple of things that you're going to say that will either get people listening in and wanting to hear more, or if you do it the wrong way, they're going to look down at their phones or they're going to look at the table and say, what torture, what person are we going to have to listen to next because we're no longer listening to this? And when you're putting that introduction together, I tell all of my clients that I work with a couple things that are completely irrelevant. I don't need your name, not important. I don't need the name of your business, doesn't matter. And it doesn't really matter to me where you're located. All three of those things are easy filler things that people use in an elevator pitch because they haven't taken the time to prepare a great introduction. So if I was starting my pitch out to you and I said, Patricia, do you know that 9 out of 10 people struggle with their elevator pitch? Well, just with that short little sentence, I'm throwing out a number there, 90%, that includes just about everybody that's hearing this podcast now. I haven't said my name, my company, where I live, doesn't matter. Because until I've said something that you're truly interested in, I don't really need to know who you are or how to follow up with you. The next thing I would say in my pitch is, that's okay. Lots of people struggle with that, but I've got great ways to work with you to teach you how to do a pitch that will resonate, that will be memorable, and that will get people following up with you. Well, now maybe in those first 2 statements, I've really said something that's meaningful to you. I've said something, a statistic that includes you, and I've told you that I've got simple ways that will help you get through this and get better at it. All the way at the end of it. Then I might say, I'd love to tell you more. My name is, my company name is, here's how you get in touch with me. Because now I put that information at the end. Hopefully I've said something that interests you, or very often the people listening are not your customers. But if you do say something that is compelling and interesting, I can guarantee you they know somebody who could use your service. So that's really, to me, the keys in that pitch. It's a 10 or 12 second introduction, and it's another 10 or 12 seconds of engagement, how you do it differently or why you've got the solution, and then the closeout. I'd love to be able to help you. Here's how to get in touch with me. That is a surefire way to create an elevator pitch that resonates, that's memorable, that gives people the chance to want to follow up with you. And keep this in mind. One last tip about the pitch. The idea in your elevator pitch is you're not selling anybody anything. Let me just say that one more time for emphasis. Your elevator pitch is not about selling anybody anything. The idea of your elevator pitch is to get somebody a little more interested or curious about you, what you do, and how you do it. All the sales, that comes all the way down the road once you've really had a chance to meet with somebody and talk about what their needs are and how you're able to address their needs. So anyone who's showing up at any of these networking meetings thinking, today's the day, I'm going to sell 5 clients on solar roofing today, it's not going to happen. Go in with the right expectations so that when you leave, you're not disappointed that you didn't just sell 5 new roofs to put solar panels on, that you got a few people interested in what it might cost to do that or what the benefit is of doing it. And now you've collected a couple of business cards for people who are genuinely interested in what you had to say. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it definitely is, because I've gone to networking events, even like conferences and trade shows and things like that. And it's the same. Like, I've been with so many companies and they collect, hundreds and hundreds of business cards. And then they follow up and it turns out people were only there for the free giveaway on the table, because they really didn't care about, you didn't sell. I don't want to say you didn't sell yourself, but you didn't sell yourself as somebody interesting enough to want to get to know more. And it is baby steps. So I agree 100%.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring up trade shows because this is one of my pet peeves. I've done a number of posts. I did a number of posts from the Sweets and Snacks Expo that was in Indianapolis in May. It's the best trade show there is. It's basically like Halloween in May. Every candy company, every snack company, every salty snack company, anything that you would consider a sweet or a snack, they've got a booth at that show. They bring tonnage of samples, and all they want you to do is take them home, try them, hand them out to your friends so they can create interest in what they're doing. And one of the things that I posted from there was, look, so many people have this expectation about trade shows. I pay for my booth. I buy some maybe not so great, inexpensive giveaways. I put them out on my table and the rest is magic. They sit back looking at their cell phone as people are walking by, grabbing whatever crummy thing it is they purchase that has nothing to do with their business. And then when the show's over and someone says to them, how did it go? Not so well. And they wonder why it didn't go so well. And it's because, number one, they didn't have a trade show pitch. Number two, they weren't pitching to every single person who came by the booth. Trade shows are really hard work. You really have to put your time in before the show, during the show, and after the show. And a lot of people don't understand how important all 3 of those steps are to having a successful trade show experience.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%. Now tell us, defining a company's unique selling proposition, USP, is critical. So what process do you recommend for businesses to identify and refine their USP?
Okay, so unique selling proposition is really the foundation of why you started your business in the first place. Let's face it, Patricia, it's almost 2025 and there's almost no business you or I could possibly sit here and think if we could have ChatGPT come up with some crazy ideas for businesses that we think don't exist right now, and chances are they do. So knowing that any kind of business you might want to go into now already exists, the question is, you're going to go into a business that's already out there. What's going to be different or unique about your business that's going to change a buying pattern? Here's a great example. I was working with a client a number of years ago who was opening up a new coffee shop in the Midwest, in the town of Cincinnati. And I said, okay, well, that sounds exciting. What's different about your coffee shop? And she was baffled. She just thought, as long as I open up my coffee shop and my coffee tastes really good, everyone's going to show up and buy my coffee. And within 10 seconds on a Google search, Google Maps, I was able to come up with a map for her that showed her here was her store. Here's 15 coffee shops, Starbucks and every other kind, donut shops, 7-Elevens, 15, 20 that are within a mile of where she's opening up her store. And I said, you realize that all of these places are already doing business. People are already into their buying habits, buying their coffee from these stores every single morning. Now, why are they going to stop going to all those 15 places and start going to yours just because yours opened? And again, she was baffled. And I said, that's your challenge. You've got to come up with a reason why they need to change the habit of going to the Starbucks on Main Street and going to yours, because they love that. They're comfortable doing that. Right. It's a habit for them. They know where to park. They know how to talk to you. They know how to approach the counter. They know what they're going to get. Right. Now you're asking them to change all of their comforts and go to your new place, but you don't have a great reason for them for doing it.
Right.
Do you buy 3 cups and get a free one, for doing that?
Right.
Do you buy 3 cups and get a free donut? Is there some experience that we get going to your coffee shop that we don't get someplace else?
Right.
And very often, if someone takes themselves, like if they're working with me as a coach and we go through that, they might decide, you know what, we were supposed to open in May. We're not going to, because we haven't come up with that reason yet. And we don't want to start paying rent until we really know we've got a reason that people are going to show up to our coffee shop.
Right.
And the same applies to any business you might want to go into.
Right.
You have a print shop. What's different about your printing? You have a dry cleaner. My dry cleaner works just fine.
Right.
And the way you differentiate yourself in situations like that are with features or benefits that people get from coming to your business. Mm-hmm. It's what makes your business unique. Mm-hmm. Does the dry cleaner, I don't know, what service, can they add? Is there something extra they can give you? Every time you come in, do they give you a bottle of spot remover? So if you spill something on your tie or your blouse, you've got a spot remover that has their name on it. Right. And it's something that always runs out and you can always know you're going to get more. I'm just literally making that up on the fly. But that's what a unique selling proposition is. Right. And before you actually invest in your business, this is what you need to look at. Second thing you need to do is you need to look at other companies, which I mentioned earlier, are in this business. There's already companies right in your service area that do what you do. So take a look at their websites, take a look at their literature, figure out what it is that they do, and figure out something you're going to do that's different. Right. That's what a unique selling proposition is all about.
Yeah. It's funny because it's kind of like the same with me. It's like a double-edged sword because like I do IR/PR marketing, and I don't have a specific niche of just technology, just healthcare. I work with clients around the globe in every niche. And it sounds like you're all over the place. Like I've had people say that's bad. You have to pick only one. But that is what makes me stand out from everybody else, because most companies will have to hire one company or 2 or 3. I do it all under one roof for the same low price. So, it's a double-edged sword. Some people look at it as a bad thing, but that is my unique selling point. I don't know of any other company that does all the services under one roof. So I always say that's my story. I'm sticking to it. It's what works, but I agree.
I think it's good. And I could easily see your pitch being, look, if your company is in need of this and this and this, and it's going to cost you so much for this service, this service, this service, what if you could have all 3 of those under one roof with somebody who's vastly experienced in all of those things? Mm-hmm. That's the reason that you come to Patricia Baronowski and Pristine Advisors. Mm-hmm. We do all that under one roof. So it's so much more efficient for you and your business. And that's what's different about what we do. Yeah. I love that pitch. I think it's really smart.
Well, thank you. But I agree. Every company has to find that unique point, because I even worked with another company one time. They were a fast food place in Manhattan, and there's like 5 of them per block. Well, what made you so special? And we had to come up with, they did have, I won't get into all that, but that was what made them this franchise across the US. We found that one unique selling point of why they are different and better than everybody else. And it just took off like rockets, So I agree. Everybody needs that.
Yeah. Now, and that's the thing. A lot of people get frustrated with their business and they it's not that their products are bad.
Right.
But the idea is, again, you're trying to get somebody to break a habit. And if you look across all these different businesses we were talking about earlier, that there's a proliferation of here, especially in Long Island, a pizza restaurant, a bagel store, a Chinese restaurant, now Mexican and tacos seem like they're on every single corner. It's always amazing to me because you see, sadly, people investing all this money to create a new business, and then they don't have a way to get people in the door. When something opens here where I am, not too far from you, and I'm aware that a new business has opened, and I don't get one coupon inviting me to come in and try it out or get a free sample, I'm amazed, but then I'm not shocked when 3 months later I go by and they're no longer in business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, people have an attitude. I'm the greatest. Everyone don't come to me. That's not how life works. You got to tell people about it and why.
Yeah, of course, of course. And look, we're all busy doing different things. Another important step that you've got to take with this new business you have is, if no one knows it's there, how can we interact with it? How can we buy from it? How can we patronize it? We can't if we don't know what it is or where it is, on top of what's unique about it, right? So again, these are really important things that you have to think about before you open the doors. What am I going to do so that day one, there's some excitement, there's some people showing up, and I'm ready for them. When they show up, I'm not going to say, oh, we're already sold out of that style. We're already sold out of that flavor. It's like, I just got here. You just opened. What did you think was going to happen?
Now tell us, nonverbal branding. It's something that you emphasize. So can you explain what it is and why it's just as important as verbal communication and shaping of brand?
Which part of it?
The nonverbal branding.
Oh, nonverbal branding. Yes. Super, super important. Look, we human beings become completely aware of each other within 3 or 4 seconds of being in each other's presence. And so your nonverbal branding is all about your energy, your posture, your attitude, the way you're showing up, that you look like you're ready, you're alert, you've got energy. And people can perceive that as soon as they come within your sphere. So if you're face to face and you're at a networking group, people can pretty much look around the room and see who's confident in what they're doing, who's happy to be here, who likes the business that they're in, who can't wait because they're so excited about what they do to get somebody interested in having more of a discussion with them. And that's all nonverbal. That all happens before you get to shake someone's hand, before you get to say hello or start putting out some kind of an elevator pitch or an introduction about yourself. People are just looking at you and your appearance. And again, this happens in about 3 or 4 seconds. We start to make judgments based on the way you look, the way you behave, the way you act, and it all has to do with your posture and your presence. So before you ever walk into that room, give yourself 10 seconds to think about, listen, I'm going to think about this right now as if I'm going out on stage or I'm going on television with one of the big networks and the lights and everything are going to be on me. Show up like you really want to be there, like you are the star, not super cocky, like everybody's lucky to get the chance to speak to you, but just confident in the fact that you know what you're saying, you know why you're there, you really like the product that you're selling or going to be speaking about today, and you're really looking forward to making new contacts with people who are either interested in what you do or know other people who are. But this is all mindset. This all happens before you ever get to the meeting. If you're one of these people that dreads showing up, that hates being in person, that's quote unquote not a morning person, and you're going to a morning meeting, we all know that. And guess what? None of us care. The world is starting. If you're going to one of these meetings this morning at 8 o'clock, that's when it's starting. So even if you're not a morning person, every other day this week, today, when you show up at this meeting, you better be a morning person.
Right. It's funny when you say that too, because I've been on things where like you take the bus or whatever, and I can't tell you how many times I'll say to somebody, good morning. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, it is true. It's contagious. If I'm like, oh my God, good morning. How are you? I mean, well, now, so yeah, even in business, I mean, you can tell when somebody is excited, when they're happy. And I'm like, it's crazy. I'm not saying everybody has to love their job, but like, I love what I do. So I just had a conversation with someone yesterday, and they have their own marketing team. But as they're talking, my brain was going, and I sent them this like 5-page thing. What did you think of this? And they're like, wow. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw that on you, but I just love what I do and I wanted to share. And they're just like amazed by that. I'm not getting paid for that, but it's just showing that I want to help you. I want to see you succeed. I mean, and I'm not saying everybody has to love what they're doing, but you're right. It's totally readable right on you. If you just have that. Next, I go to Starbucks. I'm not a coffee drinker, but you see them there. They're tired of being there. They're throwing their coffee down. You didn't spell the name. It's like, now you just make me not want to come here anymore,
Look, human nature is people like to be around positive people, right? When somebody sees somebody else really positive like that, right, the first thing they start thinking is, wow, that person must be really successful. Look at how confident and happy they look about what they're doing. And so people generally want to be around people like that. And the contrary is true. When you're showing up negatively, when you don't like what you're doing, look, if you don't like what you're doing, don't get me involved in it, because why am I going to like what you're doing? But if you do, if you're really positive about it, if you've got great energy about it, then someone, right, even if they don't need what you're potentially selling or what your business is about, at least they will walk away and they will think to themselves, wow, that guy Glenn, he's really enthusiastic about pitch and branding and things like that. He must really love what he does. He must be good at it, because otherwise, why would he be so enthusiastic about wanting to speak about it and showing up and talking about it? That is infectious. And it works that way, where people want to be around that and feel good about that. Or they will say, hey, you know what? I know somebody who could definitely use your help. And if they see somebody who's really negative, people are going to be repelled by that. They're not going to want to be around that. So that attitude, that nonverbal, is super important to get yourself off on the right foot with new people that you're meeting. And remember, you only get one chance to make a great first impression. Don't blow it.
Exactly. Now tell us, you've written the business world's first full rhyming and full color book on branding, a brand in your hand. So what inspired you to write this, and how does its unique format enhance the lessons within?
Yeah, so there it is. So when I endeavored to write my first book, I was a big Dr. Seuss fan when I was a kid, and I read Dr. Seuss books to my children as well when they were growing up. I always loved the sing-songy rhymes, and guess what? Turns out that in life, we realize that rhymes are easy to remember. Right. So if I said roses are red, violets are blue, you would be familiar with that. Right. And so when I started writing my book, originally, I was just going to take one of my keynote addresses and reduce it to words. And I started thinking, for a guy that runs a business called Always Been Creative, that was really not putting my best foot forward. So I decided that based on the Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, which a lot of adults share with one another because it's somewhat inspirational. I gave it to both of my sons when they graduated from law school. I decided, look, that's really where Dr. Seuss ended. But there's a lot of us adults that could use Dr. Seuss type advice. So I decided that I would write a book about branding, about messaging, that would be fully rhyming and in full color. So let's see if I can open up a page here and give you a sense. Right here's something about your personal brand. And you can see this woman is on stage and she's pointing to herself like she's everything and how important she is. And then if I take the time to just say, so just what exactly is your personal brand? It's the impression we get as we shake your hand. What's the first thing that will come to our mind? You'll want us to think we've made quite a find.
Very, very unique. Definitely unique. But you are right. I'll remember rhymes.
We all do. And the idea here is that this, for people who are not into branding and personal branding and messaging and mission statements, it's a great introduction to the concepts of those things. It's not meant to be a 300 page volume on the history of branding since Procter and Gamble or Ivory Soap in the 1850s. You can go to the library, look those things up online. The idea of this is to introduce you to these concepts so that if there are things you need to know about, you can dig into them further. There's even some worksheets that I've included in here where, like, on your mission statement, right? There's some just different questions that you can ask yourself that will start guiding you toward what a mission statement actually is. So it's a fun book. It's an easy book to read in an hour or two and make some notes on. There's even a journal in the back so you can start to record things about your business or your brand. But it's a great opportunity for young entrepreneurs, students in college, people who are starting a second career and have never really been involved in this kind of thing. It's a great gift to give them. And it's, of course, up on Amazon.
Very, very nice. Now tell us, from websites to business cards, messaging needs to be consistent across all the platforms, obviously. So how do you ensure that a company's message remains strong and unified across the different mediums?
Well, the first step is to get a message that really does highlight the value of your business or brand. The second step is to make sure that that same message is formatted correctly for all of those different platforms. Every time we see you or your company or your website, your brochure, we hear you speaking about it, it's a consistent message that goes back to that value statement, what's unique that we talked about earlier about your business, why we need to know more about it, why we need to hear more about it. And I think the big mistake that people make here is they get impatient when they put something out and they don't get immediate results with it. And they have to understand how difficult it is in the world today to have a message resonate and gain some traction. And you know what, Patricia, people talk all the time about, I want my message, I want my company to go viral, I want it to go viral. And this is what I would say to that. If tomorrow you put out a statement about your business and it went viral and you got 300,000 people commenting on it or looking for follow-up information, could you even deal with that? Probably not. Most people couldn't. They wouldn't have the staff or the time and place. So let's say 300,000 people got in touch with you, and the best you could do was to get back to 500 of them being really positive the first week, maybe 500 the next week. So now you've hit 10,000 out of 300,000. You've got 290,000 people who haven't heard a thing from you. And guess what? Now you're yesterday's news. So wanting to go viral is an unrealistic expectation because most people, if it happened, wouldn't be able to deal with it. But going back to your original question, it's all about consistency. Every place we see you show up, if you look at my branding, everywhere you go with me, you'll see one of my light bulbs. You'll always see the message master. When you see me showing up, I'm generally in a jacket and either a button down or a tie, but looking professional. And anywhere you see my posts, whether they're on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok, they're consistently hammering home the same points about branding, about messaging, about elevator pitch, about showing up. And it's that consistency where people see it over and over again, and they start to trust that this is, in fact, something you're good at. It's something you know about. You speak about it all the time. So business card, website, brochures, literature, elevator pitch, they all should look like they're coming out of the very same company. Every time you do something that's different, people are now looking at it. It's a different color. They're not really sure. They don't understand where it's coming from. Consistency is one of the most important keys.
Yeah, I work with some companies the same where they were pitching one story and then it changed, and I'm like, that just makes you seem sloppy, you know. And it's funny what you say about being going viral. I've known some companies too who were trying to, you know, adapt to the latest trends, and they're doing so. One company posted something, nobody cared. They posted the same exact thing, but like this background music, and it became a trending video. But did anybody care about what you had to say, or they cared about the music? So I always say quality over quantity. So yeah, you have the quantity, but nobody cared about you. Did they even know what the message was about? So, you know, people need to take a closer look and, like you say, be consistent across all your platforms.
Yeah, the last thing in the world you want to do is put out something where what's popular about it has nothing to do with your business. That really
Right.
doesn't serve you any purpose at all, right?
Right.
You certainly, people, a lot of times people will think, I want to put out something that's funny.
Right.
And, funny has its place, but unless you're in the business of being a comedian or selling humor, you have to
Right.
be really careful about putting that kind of statement out about your business. This is a great example of this. Years ago, one of the networking groups that I was going to, one of the gentlemen was, he was in the insurance business, and he happened to be with Aflac, which, does these comical ads with this Aflac duck. And to me, anyway, insurance is a serious business. Now, I know these big insurance companies try to do all these funny things to attract attention, to get you to laugh about what they're doing. But to me, when we're getting down to the nuts and bolts of it, if I'm an insurance agent, I'm trying to sell you insurance, it's about something serious. It's to help you in the event of an accident or some kind of a health crisis, or to protect you in the event that you had some kind of catastrophe in your house. They're all serious topics. They're not things that belong being laughed about. But this guy decided that he was going to be the local Aflac jokester. And so at every networking meeting, he would either be quacking like a duck, or he would be trying to be Mr. Funny. And not one person was taking him seriously about the insurance, the gap coverage that Aflac specializes in. So you have to really know what you're saying and how you're saying it and how it's being perceived by people. Yes, you might get a little bit of a laugh at the networking meeting, but is anybody going to take you seriously in a business that is about serious matters?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And that's how she worked with some of the biggest names in retail, like Walmart and Disney. So what lessons have you learned from these high-level partnerships that small businesses can apply to their branding strategies?
Yeah, listen, that is a great question too. And whether you're going to meet, I don't know how many people who are listening to this will ever have the excitement or the nerve-wracking experience of showing up in Bentonville, Arkansas, where you're going to be selling to the biggest retailer on the planet, Walmart, where the pressure is just absolutely intense, where the buyers, there's a section of buyer rooms, and everybody is scheduled for these 45-minute appointments. And that means you've got a half hour to do your presentation, 5 minutes before it to set up, 5 minutes at the end to get your stuff out. There's no running over. There's no extra length. And the point about that is you've got to be super prepared, and you've got to have the timing down on what you're trying to get across in your presentation. It's got to be quick. It's got to be smooth. It's got to be well prepared. Well, whether you're selling to Walmart, the biggest retailer on the planet, or you're just selling to a local store down the street, the principles are the same. You need to know ahead of time what it is you're trying to impress the person on the other side of the desk with, what interaction you want with them, what you want the final outcome of that meeting to be in terms of steps at this meeting, next steps that we're going to take. And so, again, whether it's a meeting based on a $10 million sale or a $500 sale, it's all about preparation, just like that elevator pitch we spoke about earlier. You need to spend time before you go in, knowing exactly what you want to come out with and having it timed in such a way that you're not taking more time from the person who you're about to meet with than you need to. That's a business owner, and you've got to respect their time. And so it's really, really important to be prepared ahead of time with all the things you want to do, so that when you have this meeting, you know you're going to get to your 5 or 6 key points. You're not going to forget anything. You've got your handouts ready. You know what you want to leave behind with you. And you want to leave somebody with the impression of, wow, that's a man or a woman that is in absolute control. I know I'll be able to trust them with my business because I can see how they're managing the meeting that we're having today.
Right. I think that's so important too, because I've seen people just show up to meetings like 5 minutes before. And I would always think the same thing, like, if they've been doing this for like 100 years and just know it like the back of their hand, or like there's no preparation. I can't say how it went because I'm not in them, but I'm like, I agree. I'm always like, rehearsing everything in my head. I mean, you kind of have to. You're the face of what it is you're selling. So if you're not presenting it correctly, your whole story just falls apart from there.
Yeah. I mean, that goes right back to the whole idea of that impression that you make is one that's going to last. If
Yeah.
frankly, if you screw up that meeting and people are unimpressed with the way you're prepared, don't they start thinking, how well prepared is this person or this company going to be to take on my business?
Yeah, for
A lot of
sure.
times people don't see that, but that's really what somebody is thinking, right?
Yeah.
I often tell people, when you're doing one of these Zoom calls, now I happen to have a green screen behind me, so I've got a nice clear background, but I'm sure you've seen this. How often do you see someone show up on one of these Zoom calls and the space behind them is an absolute mess?
Right.
You're looking at it and you're baffled thinking, how in the world could somebody think that's okay? It's just like showing up dressed sloppily.
Yeah.
It makes so many statements about you and what kind of business you're running.
Right.
So these are all things that we have to think about before we show up.
Yeah. I 100%, trust me, doing the podcast, I've seen it all.
I'll bet.
Now tell us, what are some of the most common mistakes entrepreneurs make with their branding and messaging, and how can they avoid them?
Okay, well, some of the most common mistakes. Number one, you really do have to know what's unique about your business.
Right.
You can't begin to sell what you do if you don't know what really makes you stand out and makes you different.
Mm-hmm.
So I often say to people that, I've got this basic exercise that we go through, and it's really a differentiation exercise where I have my clients sit down and they literally have to tell me, right, why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to be in this business? And then once you've answered that question, the next one is, why does it matter to us, the people who might be buying it? Why do we care? As I said earlier, it's going to be 2025. We've been living without you and your business as a world for 2025 years. Why do we need to start dealing with you now? What's compelling about it? And how do you do it differently? How do you deliver it differently? What's different about the results that we're going to get than we would get working with someone else? Mm-hmm. These are all things that a business owner has got to be able to answer right off the top of their head. And the only way you can do that is if you take the time to sit down and really block this out in your mind and really understand what all these things mean in your business. And then one step further, if your business isn't just you, doesn't every single person who works in your business need to be aware of that? I see a lot of times business owners are afraid to share that kind of information with their staff, with their employees, with their clerical people that work in their company. And isn't that just a shame and a missed opportunity? Because everybody that works for your company should be in a position where they could basically sell what you do. Because when they go to Thanksgiving dinner, when they go out on the weekend with their friends, when they're hanging out with the people that they hang around with, and someone ultimately says, what do you do for work? What do you do every day? What kind of business are you in? If they can't answer that question the same way you would as a business owner and be a little bit excited about it, you've lost a major opportunity for one of your employees to bring business and attention to your company. Right. So I think a lot of companies don't want to take the time to do that. They think it's a waste of time. And I tell them the exact opposite. Everybody in your company should be a salesperson for your company. It's really, really important to understand that. Now, in terms of branding, what colors are you going to use to highlight your company? Because certain colors denote certain things to people. You see here in my logo, I've got a black and I've got a yellow light bulb. Yellow stands for energy. It stands for positivity. It stands for creativity. Black is seriousness. I'm really serious about the things that I do. It's crisp. It's sharp. The font is not in some script that's difficult to read. Same thing what's going on up here. No one has to take out binoculars to try to figure out what I'm writing, what I'm saying. So many people, so many businesses, Patricia, that I'm sure you see as somebody who's in, graphics like you are. You'll go by their marquee and you're puzzled. That thing is 10 feet wide and 3 feet high, and I can't read it. I don't know what it says. Don't you take the time to look at that and say, whoever my sign maker is, I can't read that. If I can't read it and I know what it is and I know the business I'm in, how's somebody who's a total stranger going to be able to read it? Really? It's baffling sometimes that these things that seem so simple seem to be so lost on so many people. And then you hear statistics like most new businesses go out of business within the first year. And yet we're uncovering all these different things that people do wrong that are simple things. And look, I'll say this is not a brag about me. I'm not the only person that does, marketing and messaging, that kind of a thing. It does seem a little unique in the networking that I've done, but very often we can't be good at the things that we need to be good at. And so if you look at your business and say, in order to be great, your business has got to be great in these 10 areas, but you're only good in 3 or 4 of them, then it's really incumbent upon you to figure out those other 6 or 7 things and find the people who can make the difference for you in those areas so that you are working well in all those areas. Very often someone will say to me as a coach, well, I really can't afford, to work with you. And my answer is typically you can't afford not to, because if you don't have your message right, it's like closing the door or hanging up a sign in front of your business that says closed for business. Because if your messaging isn't right, then how in the world is anybody going to be expected to want to do business with you?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And it is funny with the message, because I've seen people with these long, names. And it's like, who's going to read through all of that anyway? Just short and sweet. Who are you? Why do I care? And then you break it down after that.
Yeah.
Now tell us, how important is storytelling and branding? And what tips can you offer entrepreneurs who are trying to incorporate compelling stories into their messaging?
Right. Well, this is the thing about storytelling, because most of us, if we're lucky enough to have had people with our, parents or siblings or in school read stories to us, human beings relate to and remember details about stories. It's just baked into the human cake. We relate to those. So if I said to you, Goldilocks, and you'd probably remember the 3 bears. You'd probably remember the bed's too soft, too hard, just right. If I said the 3 little pigs, you'd know the wolf, and I'm going to blow your house down and all those things, right? We remember those things, and we probably haven't had those stories read to us, depending on how old you are. In my case, I don't think anybody's read one of those stories to me in 60 years, but I still remember them, and I can still see them. I can still see the books that they were in. Maybe I read them to my sons when they were little, so we'll go back 30 some odd years. But human beings remember stories. They remember the moral of the story. They remember what was important about the story. So if you've got a really important story about why you started your business, and people hear that and they hear you talking about it passionately, it brings them a step closer to wanting to interact with you, because they can hear about the way you speak about it and how passionate you are and how your story tells the idea of how you in my case, gave someone confidence, helped fill them up with words that they needed to say, gave them the confidence to show up at their next networking meeting. And I tell people also, it's important to have a stable of stories. You might want to have different stories that relate to different aspects of your business, which give you authority, which tell people why it's important to you, why you're passionate about it. So storytelling is crucial, because once you do your elevator pitch and somebody takes a further interest in what you're doing and you have a follow-up meeting with them, you're going to want to tell them 1 or 2 stories about how something in your business made a difference for one of your clients or customers. Because in that way, the person that you're pitching to can start to see themselves in that story as somebody else who's going to be helped by it, number 1. And number 2, they will go back and they will remember that story because of the way you told it and how much it meant to you and how much it meant to the person that you helped in the story. That makes you memorable. That makes your business memorable. And after all, that's what we want. When we're done and people go back to their offices or go back to what they're doing every day, we want them to remember the story about the message master or always been creative. That's why storytelling and brand storytelling are so important. You've got a reason for why you started this coffee shop, pizza restaurant, graphic design firm. You've got a story for why you wanted to do that. When you get the chance to share that with people, your passion for the business comes out, Patricia.
Right. I agree. That's what I say. Get me started. I'm rambling on a mile a minute because it's true. People can feel that. Now tell us, for those just starting their journey and building a brand or refining their messages, what are the 3 pieces of advice you'd offer them to set them up on the right path?
Well, the first thing is, again, going back to this basic exercise, why? Why are you doing what you're about to do?
Right.
You really need to be able to answer that succinctly and with a lot of meaning. You just write that down on a piece of paper. Why am I starting this business? Why am I starting this brand? And then, go into the next, okay, that's why you're starting it. Why does it matter to us? Why is this business, why is this brand going to have meaning in the world? A world that up until today, 2025 years, we existed without it. We were doing just fine without it. Why tomorrow, once we know about this, are we going to care about it? These are the most important things that somebody starting out has got to be able to answer. And if you can't, and you can't be compelling about it to the point where somebody would hear why you're starting it, oh, I can't believe, if you don't get the kind of reaction like, oh, no one did that already? That's something that people haven't done? That sounds really smart, really interesting. That's the kind of reaction that you need to get. And I'll back up one step further. A lot of people think they have great ideas for businesses, but the idea is up here. It's locked in their brains. And what I say is, if you've got a great idea for a business, but it's in your head, it's a daydream. It's a daydream until you put it down on paper or on some kind of digital document, share it with somebody else who looks at it and says, I get it. That's interesting. I can't believe no one's done that. I would buy that or participate in that or look further into that. That's when you might know that you have something. Once you share that with somebody, and then when you figure out this is why it's going to matter to you and explain that you're going to make it easier, cheaper, faster to get to, completely different, eye-opening, educational, whatever the case may be, that people are going to react to and go, wow, I don't need that, but I know a half a dozen people who could use it. Those are the reactions that you need to get. But you need to get it from here down on paper so that it's in black and white and you're not afraid to share it. Because if you're afraid to share it, then I really have to start questioning, do you really believe in this? Or are you scared to tell somebody about it? Because if you are, this might not be the right thing for you to go into. Because in this business of ours, you've got to have some thick skin. You've got to be prepared to hear a lot of no's. You've got to be prepared to take a lot of rejection. It's not instant overnight success. We dramatize how easy it is to get on the stage at Shark Tank, and I'm going to make $1 billion with my idea. But for every person that you see get on Shark Tank, there's probably 1 million that are not even close to having that kind of a concept where they can at least feel secure enough about it to even get out there and have a viable business.
I couldn't even agree more with everything that you're saying. And it is true where some people don't realize it themselves. That's why they need that outside perspective to kind of guide them, because, it's easy to say, well, I'm great and everything I'm doing is great and the whole world wants it. Yeah, but that's how you see it. But is that how everybody else is going to see it? Let me guide you, Yeah.
Right.
Now, anything else you want to add that we didn't already talk about?
Well, look, the whole idea of all this stuff that's the most important to me is that whether it's your personal brand, your nonverbal branding, your elevator pitch, your storytelling, it all comes down to deep intention. I use the word intention a lot. You've really got to be intentional about all of these things. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get these things done by yourself. You certainly can. But you're also going to run into roadblocks because not everybody can do everything well. You might be good at the sales part of your business, but not the finance part. You might be good at the finance part, not the sales part. You might not be a very creative person. You might not be somebody who's really good with making presentations. All of these different skills have got to be mastered to really be good at what you're doing, but you may not be good enough naturally at all these things. And so it's important to understand when you need a Patricia Baronowski-Schneider, when you need a Glenn Rudin, when you need a great accountant, when you need a bookkeeper, whatever these things are, it's hard for you to be great at all of them. Mm-hmm. So what I would say to you is figure out the things you're great at, but also figure out the things you're not great at, mm-hmm. and find the people who can fill in those blanks for you so you've got the best possible chance of succeeding.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I always say, I know what I'm good at. I'll tell you straight off, I can't do A, B, and C. Let me find somebody else who can. And together it's a team, and that's what it's all about, making, your company successful.
Right.
So
Right. And listen, be prepared. Some of these things will cost money. There's no getting around that. But if you truly believe in what you're doing, you're making an investment in your idea. If you think your idea is that good, you've got to be willing to put some money down and say, I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to put some money out because I believe strongly enough in this. And it's going to get you from point A to D or C or wherever you have got to get to. It's going to get you there that much faster.
Right. Now, how could people learn more about you or, find your book or, get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm really easy to get in touch with. Right? My website is alwaysbeencreative.com. Okay. And right on there, right on the homepage, there's a link to set up a free 30-minute connection call where I can listen to exactly what you're trying to do and immediately give you some pointers and free advice on what I would do next if I were you. More or less, kick the tires with you. You can certainly find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Glenn with 2 N's. Rudin. I'm probably the only Glenn with 1 N. Rudin also. You can find me on Instagram as Glenn_Rudin_message_master. And you could just write to me directly, Glenn@alwaysbeencreative.com. I answer all my messages personally. I've got help, but I believe on LinkedIn and things like that, it's really important for you to hear directly from me. So if you've got an idea for something that you want to talk about, I'd love to hear from you. And more importantly, I'd love to connect with you and learn more about what you do so that I can refer people to you and help you grow your business.
Well, thank you again for being on the show. Again, that was Glenn Rudin. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the channel. So thank you again.
Thank you for listening to Real Conversations with Patricia, talking with some of the most brilliant minds on their journey to success and their recommended strategies. Please leave your feedback and visit pristineadvisors.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Feel free to let me know your thoughts, suggestions, and anything else you'd like me to cover. Together, we can make success happen for all.